Okay, welcome everybody. So in China, you can find entire neighborhoods that are completely empty. Finished buildings, no people, no shops, nothing. I saw places like this sitting there for 1 or even 2 years. Then people started moving in, and very quickly, it was full. That's when I realized they weren't overbuilding, they were planning long term. So I watched a completely empty field transform during my time in China, right across the street from the apartment I was living in. And what stood out to me was how quickly its space changed once things got going. The field did not stay empty for long. Construction moved quickly, with buildings going up fast. I could start to see the shape of the area forming over time, with blocks, roads, and structures taking place, step by step. Then it sat totally empty for a year or two. It felt a bit weird, possibly wasteful. I remember thinking, who is this supposed to be for? But eventually, people did start moving in, and once that happened, things picked up pretty quickly. Gradually, then suddenly, it became a full neighborhood. Shops opened, daily life appeared, and a whole community formed where there had once been nothing. It went from an empty field to a full neighborhood within my time there. But that empty phase in between is what I really remember. So many countries, development follows demand. Cities expand after people move in. But in China, it often works in reverse. Development comes first. So government and developers don't wait for growth. They try to anticipate where it's going and build ahead of time. That means entire districts can be built before they're needed, with roads, buildings, and transit already in place, even if the area isn't fully populated yet. A clear example is Zhangdong New District in Zhengzhou, once labeled a ghost city, built before a full population arrived. But now it's a major urban hub with close to 1 million residents. Another example is Zhang'an New Area, a planned city of the future, built in advance to guide long term growth, and it's still under development today. So the pattern is consistent: build first and let demand catch up later. So in China, they don't just react to growth, they prepare for it. But from a Western perspective, places like this can look unusual. Empty buildings or large undeveloped areas in China often get labeled as ghost cities, and that term itself suggests something has gone wrong. So in a Western model, development usually follows demand. So when you see empty space, it's easy to assume it's a mistake or mismanagement. But in this case, what you're seeing is often just one moment in a much longer process, because these areas are built ahead of demand. There's often a gap between when something is built and when it's fully used, and that's where perception can get misleading. Media and images tend to capture the early phase, when things look empty or unfinished, but not always the later phase, when the area is fully developed and active. So it can create a very incomplete picture of what's actually happening over time. And if you're seeing it for the first time, that reaction makes sense. It can feel confusing at first, because what looks like failure at a glance may just be part of a longer timeline. So we're judging a long term process with a short term perspective. So in China, infrastructure comes first with roads, transit, and utilities. The foundation is put in place before large scale population arrives. Then housing is built at scale. Entire districts are prepared at once, so the capacity is already there when people arrive. After that, people move in. So China still has ongoing rural to urban migration. People move towards cities for jobs and opportunity. This creates a steady flow of population into urban areas. While that flow has slowed compared to earlier decades, it still drives large scale movement and creates consistent, predictable demand for housing. In many ways, it's similar to what happened in the United States about 100 years ago, but happening on a larger scale and much faster. These buildings aren't waiting for random buyers, they're waiting for people who are already on the move. And that's why something can sit empty for a year or two and then fill very quickly, because once people arrive, the infrastructure is already in place and the system is ready to absorb that growth. So, one of the biggest advantages of this approach is that it helps avoid housing shortages because housing is built in advance. Cities are better prepared when large numbers of people arrive. It also helps prevent infrastructure bottlenecks. Roads, transit, and utilities are already in place, so growth doesn't stall as population increases. Building early and at scale can also lower costs. Large projects are more efficient to construct together compared to building reactively in smaller pieces. And overall, this allows cities to grow faster and more smoothly without waiting for each step of development to catch up. Which brings it back to what you might see at first, that empty area isn't necessarily a sign of failure. It's part of a system designed to support future growth. That's why something can look empty one year and then transform so quickly later on. But this system isn't perfect, and overbuilding can and does happen. Demand forecasts aren't always accurate. That can lead to excess supply in certain areas where buildings take longer to fill or remain under use for longer than expected. There are also financial challenges. Local governments can take on significant debt, especially when funding large scale development. And not every project succeeds as planned. Some areas take much longer to develop and don't always grow at the pace originally expected. In some regions, vacancy rates have remained relatively high. And when things go wrong, they can go very wrong. A major example is Evergrande, a highly leveraged developer whose financial struggles highlighted the risks in the system. There are also incentive pressures. Local officials may prioritize meeting growth targets, which can sometimes distort planning decisions. So while the system is designed for long term growth, it still comes with real risks. Long term planning isn't perfect, but it is intentional. It delivers rapid growth, but also comes with significant challenges when forecasts miss. So, why does this kind of thinking exist in the first place in China? It's not random. Strong state coordination allows long term planning. The government has the ability to organize and direct development at a large scale. Institutional continuity supports multi decade projects. Plans can extend across many years without being completely reset. And there's also a deeper historical context. China is a very old civilization with a long historical memory. Governing large populations over centuries required thinking ahead. Planning for the long term wasn't optional, it was necessary. That mindset didn't disappear. It still influences how decisions are made today. Of course, it's not just history. Modern policy plays a major role as well, including 5 year plans and structured development strategies. So it's a combination of factors: historical patterns, modern institutions, and centralized planning. When a society has been thinking in decades and even centuries, planning ahead starts to feel normal. So if you go back to the empty field I mentioned earlier and those quiet half-finished buildings, it doesn't really tell the full story on its own. It's just one moment in a much longer timeline. Long-term planning is what shapes what comes next in China, with housing, infrastructure, and entire city growth. And it's the reason those places can change so quickly later on, from empty to fully built up in a short time. When I first saw it, it didn't make much sense, but looking back, the pattern becomes clearer. So it really comes down to this. If you only look at the present, it looks like overbuilding. But if you look at the timeline, it looks like preparation. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching this video. If you liked it, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I have many more coming just like it. Also, maybe leave a comment, if you would. What does urban planning and development look like in your country? I would like to know. And thanks again, everybody, for watching. I'll see you for the next time.